So wonderful to be with you here this morning again. And so I've been here a couple of different occasions, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. Appreciate so much Pastor Robert extending the invitation to me and the warm hospitality that I receive from each of you every time that I'm here. I'm really thankful for all of that. And happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all of the fathers. Hope that you have a great day. It's the most, I think, overlooked holiday in the calendar year, but that's okay. It's okay. I'm going to show, I'm not bitter. I'm going to show an image here, but if you've seen this before, please don't say anything. If you haven't seen it before, I want you to look carefully at it for just a moment or two. And if this is the first time that you've ever seen this image, I'd ask for a volunteer to raise your hand and just to describe to me what it is that you're seeing. This is the first time you've seen it. Just raise your hand and share with me what it is that you're seeing. Yes, right here. Yep. You've never seen it before? Okay. Show. A woman looking to the right. She's got a feather. Okay. And how old do you think that, we never should ask this question, how old do you think this woman is? But anyway, young. Okay. Okay. Yeah, because her neck is beautiful, right? And her jaw is nice. Okay. All right. Is there anyone else who has never seen it that you've never seen this picture before? What is it that you're seeing? Okay. All right. All right. Good. Good. Yeah. It's okay. It's all right. Anybody see anything? If you've never seen this before, but you see something else. You've never seen this before, but you see a woman that might not be as young. Oh, did you just see it? Okay, have you seen this image before? No.
But I saw right before you said young.
Okay, so what do you see? Okay.
Yeah, so her black hair and the silhouette of her left cheek, she's looking over her right shoulder, and she's got the prettiest eyelash and her little nose, and that big like turban or white something over her hair, and her hair's all updo, kind of like mine is today, and she's got a big fur coat on. Let me think. Oh, and that little slice there that looked like the old woman's smile.
Wait. You said the old woman smile. So what did you see first?
I saw the old woman first.
Oh, wait. What old woman?
Oh, I see an old woman.
Okay, and describe that to me.
Oh, sure. So it's an old woman with Barbra Streisand nose looking down.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Love it. Barbra Streisand knows. Okay, yeah, great. Yes. And she has a long chin?
She has a long gutted chin, and it's into her like shawl black.
Yeah.
She only has this black hair over her forehead and then a big like turban or something over her head.
Yeah. We can't ask this, but I'm going to ask you anyway about how old do you think this woman is?
Older than me.
Older than you. Good answer. I like that. All right. So how many can see a woman that is, what was your name again? Older than Rhonda. How many can see a woman that is older than Rhonda? You can see that? You can see that? How many can see a woman that's young, maybe in her 20s? Okay. All right. So the one that is older than Rhonda, her face is more predominant. This is her chin, right here. This is her mouth, right here. And she's looking this way. And then the younger woman, she's looking over her shoulder, and this is her choker, not her mouth. And that's an ear and not an eye. Do you see it now? You see it now? Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's easier to see on this one than that one. They're identical. So I remember when I first saw this image, I was probably around 6th grade when I first saw this image. And for me, it was the older woman that stuck out to me, and I just saw it right away. And when someone just started describing the younger woman, I did not believe them at all. I thought that they were making it up. I thought there were plants in the classroom to describe it. I was so convinced that it was just the older woman. And it took me a while. It took me a while to be able to discover, like, oh, both of them are there at the same time, the younger woman and the older woman. I'm going to run the risk of leaving this up the entire sermon. If all you want to do is figure out where the other lady is, that's fine with me. But I am going to run the risk of leaving it up the entire sermon. And so even in the same image, both are visible and both are possible. The older woman and the younger woman. And I'd like to take a look at this passage here this morning with that kind of view and perspective. And I'm going to also run the risk of using the terms ugly and beautiful. I'm not saying that the woman is ugly. I would say that she might be less attractive than the younger woman. You're going to go out on a limb there with that. So at first glance this morning, I would say that this is not a beautiful story. This is a description of a man that is deeply disturbed. The text describes it as demon possession, and I'm not going to foray into that this morning of demon possession, but certainly in first century Palestine, the sense that this man was possessed of demons was very real for him, for his own experience, and for those around him. There were things that were happening with him that were not able to be controlled or contained, and if not demon possession, then I think probably certainly some mental health challenges or mental health issues that were at play, again, that may or may not have been described or diagnosed or understood at the time in first century, but at the very least, certainly misunderstood. That people didn't understand. I don't think he understood himself. I don't think that others understood his actions and his behavior. And so they behaved in a way that most people do when they don't understand things, is they try to contain and control. They're like, this man is behaving in such a way that we can't do anything about it. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a guard over him so that the way he's watched. And go further than that, we're going to bind him with chains. We're going to bind him with fetters. We're going to lock him up. And somehow he would break forth from these chains, and that he would rip off his clothes and he would run into the tombs, and nobody knew what to do with him and nobody knew what to do for him. This is a horrible existence in which he's racked with fear. He feels like everything and everybody are out to get him. I can imagine that he has no peace, that he has no happiness, that he lives a miserable, tormented existence. But then, something beautiful does happen. That Jesus literally sails onto the scene. He commands unclean spirits to come out. And we read that he's sitting, clothed, and in his right mind. That there's this sense of instant transformation that takes place in his life. That it goes from persecution to peace. That torment is supplanted with tranquility. That confusion gives way to clarity. That he felt helpless, And now, because of Jesus, he feels hopeful. And I don't know about you, but I think that there have been times in my life where I have felt similar experiences. But first, let me say, not nearly as dramatic a way. I've never been chained. I've never been compelled to live among the graveyard or among the tombs. I'm arguing here from the greater to the lesser. Meaning, if Jesus can bring peace to this man's life, and to this man's circumstance, and to this man's turmoil, if my own conditions are lesser than that, I believe that Jesus can do that for me as well, and I've experienced that in my own life. There have been times where I have felt misunderstood. There have been times where I have felt anxious. There have been times where I can't sleep at night because I'm worried about things that are happening in my life, in my work, in my family. There have been moments where it seems like something is always wrong or about to go wrong, and that I have felt helpless. Can anyone else identify with any of those feelings here this morning? You know why? Because we're human. Because we're human, and these are things that befall us. But then I've also noticed that the inexplicable happens. That there have been moments of transformation in my life where Jesus comes to me, not in person, but in spirit, where I can sense his presence with me during these difficult times and moments in my life. I was a pastor for many years in Iowa, and I would suggest that pastoring is not for the faint of heart. And I remember a certain season in my life where I felt like I was a failure as a pastor, that I didn't feel like I was making a difference, that I wasn't seeing the things happening in the church and the congregation that I really hoped for, that sometimes people get upset at the pastor. It's hard to believe, but that happens, and they just speak their minds about it, and that was a really good sermon, but I didn't agree with that one point. Like, thank you for sharing that very much. I appreciate it. That's lovely. And so I remember this really low period in my life as a pastor, and we lived in Iowa along the Mississippi River, and I was driving along River Drive and listening to the radio, and while I was listening to the radio, there was this song that came on by David Crowder, and the lyrics are, "Oh, how he loves us, that he is jealous for me. He loves like a hurricane, and I am a tree, bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me." And then it goes into the chorus, and the chorus is just a refrain of, "And oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. How he loves us all." And it was just a moment. It was just an encounter in which I felt like I could go on. Nothing else had changed. None of the church finances had changed. None of the circumstances had changed. None of the people had changed. But there was a transformation that took place in a moment inside of me where I felt like I was now settled, sitting, clothed, in my right mind, in a way because of an encounter with Jesus that touched me through a song. I also remember when my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer and what that felt like for me. And when I heard about that diagnosis and knew the treatments that she was going to have to go through, and seeing my mom lose all of her hair through the radiation and chemo treatments, and see her effervescence begin to wane. And I remember that being a very low point in my life, and I felt once again like Jesus came to me through Scripture, saying, "The Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, and my cup runneth over. And surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. And I didn't know how, and I didn't know when, but I felt in that moment that everything was going to be okay. And I'm grateful to share with you today that my mom is cancer-free and has been cancer-free for a number of years. In fact, she was here in January. And for those of you who were here then, I testified that my dad was cancer-free. And so both of my parents have been diagnosed with cancer. Both of them have gone through treatment. Both of them are cancer-free. I'm so grateful for that here this morning. And I know that that's my story, and not every story ends the same way. I recognize that. I know that we might have these moments where we're believing for good outcomes, but yet cancer or another illness takes away those whom we love. And that's a different journey and a different path. And I understand all the heartache and grief that goes along with that. But I'm so thankful that no matter what we're walking through, no matter what we're going through, that we can feel the presence of Jesus with us in those moments. So I felt him in a song, and I felt him in scripture, and I would say that there can be a way that Jesus comes to us in a way that doesn't start with an S, and I recognize that as well. But at its core, it's this sense that we're known, and it's a sense that we're loved no matter what, and it is beautiful. But I ask the question here this morning, is this story beautiful for everybody? Is it beautiful for the pigs? Decidedly not the pigs, right? Decidedly not the pigs. What about the pig farmers or the swine herds? And we don't know exactly, who they were, whether they were the owners of the pigs or whether they were the caretakers of the pigs. But either way, they're responsible for the pigs and the well-being of the pigs. And when I read Scripture, what really helps me is to do one of two things, and sometimes I do both. I try to put myself in the first century setting as if I'm there and kind of see it, hear it, smell it. And then also sometimes I put the story into a 21st century setting, be like, I wonder what it would be like if Jesus did what he did now instead of then. And so in doing that exercise, I could really identify with the swine herds because growing up on a farm, we raised cows for years and years. But then on the cusp of me going into high school, my dad decided that we would raise pigs. And I hated it. So pigs they smell awful, and my job was to shovel out the pig manure. So I would put on rubber boots, and I would get the shovel, and they had a little bedding area, and then the rest of it was all outhouse, right? So indiscriminately poop everywhere. And so I would be shoveling, and the pigs wouldn't move. They would just be laying there. And so I wanted to get their attention. I'd be like, come on, bacon. Move it, pork chop. Come on, pepperoni. Every pork product I could think of is how I insulted these pigs. And then pretty soon they would kind of grunt a little bit and get up, and then they would scamper away. And when they scampered away, all of it comes up onto me, in my face, all over my clothes. And so I would be scraping the manure all the way down to this holding area and container. And so I'd come home from school, I would do my chores, and then I would come home and shower and clean and shower again. And there's something about the smell of pig, you cannot get it off of you. It just stays in your pores. And so I had a date-free high school experience. I would like to ascribe it to other things. Maybe it was the pig stench. Maybe it was other things. And then, after I graduated, my dad's graduation gift was selling the pigs. You know why? Because he got rid of his free labor. He wasn't a bit interested in shoveling the pig manure. So we had it for the years that I was in high school. That's the only amount of time that we had pigs. And so, again, I'm thinking of this experience of my dad coming and asking me about my chores. And I'd be like, yeah, Dad, I was cleaning out the stalls. And this guy in a beard and a robe drives up in a pickup truck. And he says something that I can't quite make out to this homeless guy. And the next thing I know, all of the pigs bust through the gates, run down to the pond, and drown in the pond. Sorry about that. And the text says that, in Luke, it says that it's a large herd. The parallel account is described in the book of Mark, and the book of Mark says that there are about 2,000 pigs. Right? So there's about 2,000 pigs that all of a sudden are dead. Just doing some rough math on the size of the pigs, we don't know, the size of the herd, blah, blah, blah. $575 a pig. That's over $1 million, easily over $1 million in today's money. That was just gone like that. And no matter the actual value, it's someone's property, someone's livelihood, and real food for people that needed to eat that was destroyed with no logical explanation. And when there's no logical explanation, the most common emotion for the vacuum is fear. If we look at verse 35, they find this man sitting clothed in his right mind, and it says, and they were afraid. Moving on down to verse 37, it says, then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them. Why did they ask Jesus to leave? Because they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. So the whole people, they were seized with great fear. They asked Jesus to leave, and he left. And that sounds like a pretty ugly story. And I would contend this morning that people do ugly things when they're afraid. I don't know if anybody has watched the news recently. But it seems like a lot of ugly things that are happening in our world and around us. And I would suggest this morning that the chief motivating factor is fear. The people are afraid, and because they're afraid and because they don't understand, then they begin to do ugly things. I was reading a New York Times article by David French, and I was referenced a New York Times article by David Brooks last time I was here. I read other sources, and I read columnists who are not named David. Yeah, for the record. April 20th article, he asked the question of whether Christians were raised in a fear the world church or a love your neighbor church. A fear the world church or a love your neighbor church. And he describes this fear the world church as being really a culture of fear, where everything is a threat, where the world is a threat, and that secular friends, so non-church friends, are dangerous. Secular education, non-religious education is perilous. Secular ideas are bankrupt. And the emphasis in those churches is to prepare for persecution because they, whoever they are coming to destroy the church and they're coming to destroy everything that you hold dear. There's a Bible verse that says that perfect love casts out all fear. And I would say the converse of that is true, that perfect fear casts out all love. And when a church is dominated by fear, there's not a whole lot of room for love. Whereas a love your neighbor church is not seized by fear, but it's gripped with compassion. Compassion for the hurting individual. Compassion for the tormented. Compassion for the confused. Compassion for the misunderstood. And in those churches, they're always looking for ways to love as Jesus loved so that there can be transformation. So is this a beautiful, ugly story? Or is it an ugly, beautiful story? I'll ask that again. Is this a beautiful, ugly story? Or is this an ugly, beautiful story? And to be honest with you, I'm still not sure. I'm still not sure which it is. But I do know that in the end, as we read verse 39, it says the man went away proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. And I know that is beautiful. So what about your life? How would you describe it? How would others describe it? How do you see your life? Is it ugly? I imagine you've been hurt. Imagine you've been wounded. I imagine you've felt betrayed. I imagine you've been disappointed. Or is your life beautiful? Those touches of grace, those words of kindness, the warm embraces, someone who really understands. And I think if we're honest this morning, it's a mixture of both. Right? But if we focus on only one aspect, if we only see the old woman and become so fixated on that image, then we can lose the capacity to see the whole picture. And this morning, I think the big picture is this: that God does beautiful things right in the midst of ugliness.